Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 17, The Victory of Hiranyaksha. The victory of Hiranyaksha over all the directions of the universe. Text number 2. Ditistu bhartura deshan apatya parishankini purne varshashate sadhvi putra prasushuve yama. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The virtuous lady Diti had been very apprehensive of trouble to the gods from the children in her womb, and her husband predicted the same. She brought forth twin sons after a full 100 years of pregnancy. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The virtuous lady Diti had been very apprehensive of trouble to the gods from the children in her womb, and her husband predicted the same. She brought forth twin sons after a full 100 years of pregnancy. Text 3. Utpata bhavastatra nipetur jayamanayoho divi bhuvyantarikshecha lokasyorubhayavahaha. Translation. On the birth of the two demons, there were many natural disturbances, all very fearful and wonderful, in the heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and in between them. Text 4. Saha chala bhuvaschelur dishak sarva prajajvaluhu solkascha shanaya petuhu ketavaschartihetavaha. Translation. There were earthquakes along the mountains on the earth, and it appeared that there was fire everywhere. Many inauspicious planets like Saturn appeared, along with comets, meteors, and thunderbolts. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When natural disturbances occur on a planet, one should understand that a demon must have taken birth there. In the present age, the number of demoniac people is increasing. Therefore, natural disturbances are also increasing. There is no doubt about this, as we can understand from the statements of the Bhagavatam. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this chapter is going to describe the victory of Hiranyaksha over all directions of the universe. Hiranyaksha is the twin brother of Hiranyakashipu. Both of them were born as demons. By birth they were demons. They were born as demons to Diti and Kashyapa. Now the description by who is describing this? Maitreya is describing to Vidura. So Maitreya is describing the birth of these two demons. Sometimes devotees say that the sequence of different events in the Bhagavatam is very confusing. The appearance of Lord Varaha, who killed Hiranyaksha, is already described in the 13th chapter. Now, why is it that the birth of Hiranyaksha is described in the 17th chapter and the appearance of Varaha who killed Hiranyaksha after Hiranyaksha did so many nefarious activities? Why is it described in an earlier chapter? That is because the Bhagavatam is presented as questions and answers. Bhagavatam is not exactly proceeding like a narrative of a particular series of incidents. If you go back to the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the first canto, first chapter, the Bhagavatam begins by describing questions by the sages of Naimisharanya to Suta Goswami. So the very beginning of Bhagavatam itself is questions. And Suta Goswami gives the answers. And there are more questions and more answers. So the entire Bhagavatam actually is a presentation in the question-answer format. So if you carefully follow the questions and answers, then you can see a very logical sequence in everything that is described in the Bhagavatam. This is different from the narration story in the story format that is followed in some other scriptures. Itihasas, typically itihasas, they follow this story narrative pattern. So it's chronological and it describes a certain set of personalities whose historical incidents are described, the story is described in chronological sequence. But in the Bhagavatam, the description of Krishna Katha is proceeding in the question-answer format. So if you recollect, Suta Goswami's answers to the questions by the sage Naimisharanya, after the initial questions were answered, then Suta Goswami said, seeing the eagerness of the sages to hear Krishna Katha, he said, now I shall narrate to you or tell you the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I heard from Shukadeva Goswami, who was speaking this Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj when Parikshit Maharaj is about to quit his body on the bank of the river Ganga in a holy place. I was also present there, so I heard from him. Now I shall narrate to you the Srimad Bhagavatam. Immediately the sages of Naimisharanya, they say, before you begin narrating the Bhagavatam, kindly tell us, how did Vyasadeva, the author, get inspiration to compile this Bhagavatam? Where and when did he compile? What was the inspiration for him to compile this Bhagavatam? And how did Parikshit Maharaj meet Shukadeva Goswami? We have heard that Shukadeva Goswami was liberated soul by birth, and he was simply wandering without caring for any social customs. And Parikshit Maharaj was the emperor of the world. His birth is extraordinary, his activities are extraordinary. So kindly describe to us the birth, the activities of Parikshit, and also tell us how did he meet this Shukadeva Goswami. So like that, the various questions asked by the sages occupies the remainder of practically the bulk of the first canto of the Bhagavatam. So after describing how did Parikshit Maharaj meet Shukadeva Goswami, then Suta Goswami turns to the description of the Bhagavatam itself, what Shukadeva Goswami spoke to Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj first asked one question from Shukadeva Goswami, and the answer to that one question in few verses Shukadeva Goswami completed. Then Shukadeva Goswami went on to describe, particularly because that question concerns the transcendental activities of the devotees. Because that question is, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? What should he do? What should he remember? What should he hear? What should be his mood? So that straight away Shukadeva Goswami says he should hear about, remember about the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, if at all one desires fearlessness, because at the time of death, everyone is more or less gripped by fear of the unknown, fear of being attacked by this, what is called as mrityu or death. So everyone is gripped by fear. Even the most powerful emperor, most powerful demigods, most powerful yogis, most powerful saintly persons who are learned in the scriptures, everyone is gripped by fear at the time of death. So Shukadeva Goswami says, if at all one desires to be fearless at the time of death, then one must remember, hear about, glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees, who removes all fear from his devotees, who actually is the super soul in everyone's heart. So like that, he describes, and then he goes on to describe that there are varieties of transcendentalists who actually try to realize this absolute truth in different ways. But the topmost transcendentalist is the devotee, one who tries to realize the absolute truth as the personality of Godhead by following the process of bhakti. So after describing that, he completes his answer to the question that Parikshit asked, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? Then Parikshit Maharaj asks something about the creation. Then Shukadeva Goswami describes the creation with reference to a conversation between Narada and Brahma. That goes on for a few chapters. And after that, Parikshit asks a whole lot of questions, much more than simply the creation. Particularly with reference to the Supreme Lord's activities in terms of creating, maintaining, destroying this world, the Lord incarnating in this world. So many different questions he asks. And he also says, Parikshit also says, kindly answer all these questions and also those which I have not asked. Kindly enlighten me about all this. So then Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami, he begins by describing the Chatushloki Bhagavata. He summarizes the Bhagavatam in 4 shlokas. And then goes on to describe the Bhagavatam has 10 topics. And I shall describe those 10 topics to you. And in the course of describing those 10 topics, all the answers to your questions will be completely answered. So Srila Prabhupada has given the title to the 10th chapter of the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. That's a wonderful thing about the Bhagavatam. All the questions are answered, all questions concerning the absolute truth, the ultimate reality, are answered in the Bhagavatam simply by describing 10 topics. So then Shukadeva Goswami begins to describe one conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. So the background for, again, Vidura meeting Maitreya is described in the beginning of the 3rd canto. And Vidura's questions to Maitreya and Maitreya's answers. That's where we are now. Maitreya is answering some questions asked by Vidura. So while Vidura was asking about the creation of Brahma, so Brahma created the Prajapatis. In the beginning, Brahma created the Prajapatis, and the Prajapatis do the further creation of the different species. So among the Prajapatis is Swayambhuva Manu, the first Manu in this day of Brahma. the son of Brahma, who accepts the position of Manu. And in Swayambhava Manu's description, Maitreya particularly mentions that he was a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The special thing about the Bhagavatam is that the historical narration is particularly centered around the description of the Supreme Lord and his pure devotees. That's why it's called Bhagavatam. In connection with the Supreme Lord Bhagavan. And Bhagavata especially refers to the devotees. So, immediately when Vidura heard that Manu was a great devotee, Swayambhu Manu was a great devotee of the Supreme Lord, please describe about his activities. So, his activity, because he was a Prajapati, involved creation of the human species. So, before he began his creation, he saw that the earth was submerged after the previous devastation in the waters of the devastation. So, he went to Lord Brahma and said, now I have to create. Now, when I create, there has to be some place for the created beings to reside. The earth is a very important planet on which so many living beings will take residence. Now, before I create, can the earth be rescued from this water of devastation? Brahma began to think, and Brahma said, what can we do? We are unable to get the earth out of the water of devastation. At the end of Brahma's day, when Brahma's night begins, there is a partial devastation. And generally, when Brahma's next day begins, the waters recede and all the planets, they become suitable for inhabitation of the created beings. But one particular day of Brahma, this particular day of Brahma, the water did not recede from the earth planet, and the earth remains submerged in the water. So then Swayambhu Manu asked Brahma. Brahma says, I am helpless. Let's pray to the Supreme Lord to do something about this. So Brahma prayed, and the Lord appeared as Varaha. And he rescued the earth so that Swayambhu Manu could properly create and place all the living beings on the inhabitants of the earth could be residing on the earth. At that time, while describing, Maitreya also mentions that not only did Lord Varaha rescue the earth, but he also killed Hiranyaksha. So now, Vidura is asking, what was the reason for Lord Varaha to kill Hiranyaksha? What did Hiranyaksha do because of which the Lord killed him? Then Maitreya goes on to describe the Kumaras. While wandering, they went to the Vaikuntha Loka. They were stopped by the doorkeepers of Vishnu in Vaikuntha, Narayana in Vaikuntha, and then the Kumaras cursed, and when they were cursed, they fell down and they took birth as the sons of Diti and Kashyapa. So that is described. So that is how Maitreya is now describing the birth of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So it is proceeding very systematically. It's not simply some haphazard description of some events pieced together. No, it is very systematic. It's just that you have to carefully follow. the thread of questions and answers. Not the stories, not the historical narration, but the thread of questions and answers. We follow the questions and answers systematically. You see, you will get the complete sequence, very logical sequence of everything that is presented by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, the description is given that Diti, she was informed by, if you recollect, Diti, she did not conceive these children at the right time. At the wrong time she conceived. Therefore, Kashyapa had already foretold that these children who will be born will be, actually the twins will be demons, because of Diti conceiving at the wrong time, inauspicious time. So Diti was very much unhappy that the children born will be very much will be demoniac by nature, and there will be so much trouble. So what she did not want to actually deliver the children. So very patiently she bore the children in her womb for 100 years. This is the calculation of the demigods. In the calculation of demigods, she bore these twins 100 years. Normally a mother has to carry the children for 9 months. But here Diti is carrying the embryo, the children in the womb, for 100 years. Finally she had to deliver. But even before deliverance, before the children were delivered, came out of the womb of the mother, there was darkness spreading everywhere just before their birth. And that is how the demigods went to Brahma and inquired, why is this darkness spreading? What is the cause for this? So Brahma explained, this is something beyond our control. This is the 2 doorkeepers are falling down and they have taken shelter of Diti's womb, and we simply have to wait for the Lord to come and actually deliver them. They will take birth and so many things will happen. So the demigods were satisfied with this reply of Brahma and they went back. But after that, Diti gave birth, and at the time of the birth of the demons, there were all inauspicious things. So Prabhupada says in the purport, in the present age the number of demonic people is increasing, therefore natural disturbances are also increasing. This we can safely conclude by the statements of the Bhagavatam. In contrast, in the Bhagavatam the description is given, Krishna appeared. The description is given at the time of Krishna's birth, all directions became very peaceful. There were auspicious stars visible in the sky. Here it is described that the inauspicious planets like Saturn appeared. On the contrary, when Krishna appeared, auspicious stars like Rohini were predominant. And then in all directions there was peace and prosperity. Further descriptions will be given in this later verses that all inauspicious and very fearful situation was created, was visible when these demons were taking birth. Whereas in Krishna's birth, everything auspicious, everything peaceful, everything very, very pleasing to the mind, to the heart, to the body. In all the directions there was peace, there was prosperity, there was very pleasant atmosphere. So the contrast is there, divine versus demoniac. Now if you study the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna first describes in 3 verses the divine qualities. He describes 26 divine qualities. And in contrast, he describes many, many demoniac qualities in the remainder of the chapter. Now you compare the divine and demoniac qualities, just the opposite. Just the opposite. Each divine quality, there is the opposite demoniac quality. So, demoniac qualities are all bad qualities, inauspicious qualities, undesirable qualities in this world. Now Prabhupada also describes in the purport particularly that demoniac nature means one particular characteristic. Demons don't follow the scriptures. Ye shastra vidhimutsrujya vartate kamakarataha. Simply they are driven by lust and they act whimsically and they don't care for the scriptural directions. They don't follow the scriptures. And this is the one particular reason why demons are misbehaved and they have all demoniac qualities. This one particular reason. Everybody in this world has got desires. But if somebody tries to satisfy the desire according to scriptural directions, they have some regulation, they have some control, they have some direction, proper direction from superior authorities, then they're trying to satisfy their desires for material happiness even is not going to be destructive, is not going to be troublesome. On the other hand, if somebody tries to satisfy their desires without any concern about rules, regulations, without following scriptures, whimsically they try to satisfy their desires, then there is only trouble, there is only problem, there is only demoniac nature manifest, and demoniac qualities manifest. That is what Krishna explains in the 16th chapter, and that you will see in the actual description of the behavior, the nature of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. As opposed to this, there are other descriptions of devotees, how they are divine nature. Devotees are always divine nature, and demons are always bad, having all bad qualities. So the actual description of the qualities we can see in the description of the behavior and the description of the nature of these personalities, these demons and devotees described in the Bhagavatam. I'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.